Whenever you try to force yourself onto someone so vicious, like the white, blue-eyed devil, Bull Connor, they'll go to the extreme.
In this section alone, there are 4 cells full of us. They even locked up Leon. He's blind.
You know what I'd do to folks when I put them on the chain gang, boy? Now listen, Mayor. That's what you desire to be called. I'm gonna give you a little piece of sound advice. If you ain't looking to share King's old cell with those little colored cockroaches. Roaches?
Coming from everywhere. Today, close to 1,200 now. Bevel, Dorothy, Andy, Hosea, all of them out front like kids in a candy store. Greeting the kids.
Bring out the dogs.
Them cops do this to you? Just the one that was driving. The other one was trying to protect.
We can't let the rest of the world see this side of us. If you could stop it, Reverend, you need to stop it.
Sir, what are we gonna do?
Just keep filling up the hog pens.
Well, Fred, where you going?
To be with those children.
Classic pop culture. It's classic pop culture. Hosted by Steve Ludwig on Planet Ludwig. Classic pop culture. It's classic pop culture. Classic pop culture.
That was our theme song, written, produced, and performed by Australia's gift to the world of pop music, Joe Mandica. Joe is a true friend of the show. Speaking of true friends of the show, how are all of you doing? This is your pal and fellow fan of pop culture, Steve Ludwig, welcoming you to another edition of Steve Ludwig's Classic Pop Culture, right here at PlanetLudwig.com. You've landed safely and peacefully here at Planet Ludwig. We've been doing our classic pop culture shows since 2013, and here we are again, show number 184. And our guests are members of the cast and crew of The Secret Weapon. Yesterday is Today. The film tells the true story of the 1963 Children's Crusade in Birmingham, Alabama, in May of 1963. The purpose of the march was to walk downtown to talk to the mayor about segregation in their city. The Secret Weapon, Yesterday is Today, is the brainchild of actor Ken Sagoes. Most of us know Ken from his roles of Big Baby in John Singleton's Rosebud, and as Kincaid in Nightmare on Elm Street Parts 3 and 4. Ken has been he's been on our show before, and he continues to be another true friend of the show. Ken is the writer, director, and co-producer, among other roles, of The Secret Weapon, and he has been a civil rights activist his entire life. He's brought with him 5 of the most gifted, dedicated, brilliant members of the movie's cast and crew. Actor Paul Buxton, who portrays the notorious racist, segregationist Bull Connor, who was a real person, and Victoria Obana, who portrays Nellie, one of the young adults who participated in the Children's March. We're also joined by 2 of the producers, besides Ken Sagoes, Karen T. Bolt and Jay Dietzel. Finally, we'll also speak with the editor of The Secret Weapon, Andrew Tyler, of his Tyler Man Films. Now, aside from our discussion about the Secret Weapon project, Ken will also talk with us about another new project, and with it, Ken Sagoes returns to the world of horror. It's a quick hour. The time just flew by. We recorded our Zoom interview just 5 days from the day I'm recording this opening. So get settled, get your snacks, and let's meet our talented guests. And here is this incredible ensemble from The Secret Weapon, Yesterday is Today. And I would like to welcome Karen Bolt, one of the producers, Jay Dietzel, another producer, Paul Buxton, actor, Victoria Obana, actor. We have Andrew Tyler, the editor, and our friend, returning champion to the show, Mr. Ken Sagoes, writer, director, producer, cameo appearance. Ken, welcome to the show, all of you.
That's the other side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get started, I want to wish Victoria a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Another year, Victoria. That's great. And also, before we get started, Andrew, as the editor of the film, I think it was very nice that you offered to edit this show as well. You just said, I'll just send you the file. Taking care of it for me.
Absolutely. Send it over, man. We'll do it. Absolutely.
I'll get it right to you. So we have a couple of your newer projects to talk about. One, which we'll talk about in a few moments, your vast horror fan base will love to hear what's coming up. But I thought right now we're all involved with The Secret Weapon, Yesterday is Today. And Ken, why don't you give us, our audience, a background to it? And it's based on this brilliant book that you wrote.
Thank you.
Ken, why don't you give us some background to The Secret Weapon, Yesterday is Today, for our audience, and then we'll go around the horn and speak with each of you about it.
Well, it's called The Secret Weapon, Yesterday is Today, and it's basically about come from true events of 1963, but where most people don't realize that it was children who gave the power back to the civil rights movement. The children went head to head with one of the most ruthless villains of all time back then, which was Eugene Bull O'Connor. So if it wasn't for those children, perhaps momentum for the walk to I Have a Dream March would not have happened. The 1964 Civil Rights Bill would not have been passed. It was children that did that. And that's why I wanted to write the story about those children. It's one of the few civil rights history events that has not been told. And it's about children. And I wanted to write this story. And I actually went back and I interviewed a lot of those that was about today. And it's called Yesterday is Today because a lot is what's going on in the world today. Is the same thing that happened back in 1963.
I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. Why are so many things still the same? Why? I mean, I lived during the Children's Crusade. Excuse me. I mean, I was in 4th grade, but we never covered it in school. I didn't know anything about it until, I later in life. It's amazing.
I can only say that love has gotten less. So if I knew the answer to some of the craziest things that's going on now, I'd be a billionaire. So I don't know. All I can say is that, people don't want to change and people want to stay the same and they don't want to see the roses. They don't want to see the light as in, just the light of hope, I don't have that answer, except that I know it can change. We can change, and we need to see stories like this that
Yes.
did.
Mhm. It's an important story. Victoria, you played the part of Nellie in The Secret Weapon. How did you prepare for your role? What did you learn about it? And take us through that process, please.
I prepared for it. I watched on YouTube. I just like looked up the Children's Crusade because I didn't know anything about it. Of course,
Sure.
they still don't teach it, which I mean, I think it should be taught so that children can feel empowered at all.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah, I had to watch. I watched a YouTube video about it. Yeah.
And Ken, I mean, kudos to you. It is so important that this story is told. And I want to show the book again. And Paul, I looking at your acting reel, there was I'd like to refer to one of your projects called Tag. In which you played a father who was so distraught over you speaking to a doctor over what happened to his daughter. I mean,
Look, I'm looking for my daughter. Marina Hipwell. Hipwell. She was brought in just an hour ago. Is she here? What room is she in?
his daughter. I mean, heart-wrenching. How do you prepare to play for such and as Bull Connor, a real life person, the white blue-eyed devil? How did you prepare to play such a excuse my language, such a bastard of a person?
It's the role I've been preparing for all my life. No.
I don't want to say you were typecast now.
Bull Connor was a little different because he was a historical character.
Yeah.
And so there is existing videotape of him. There's a biography of him, which I read. And I remember him from back in the day. Like you, I was young, but I remember watching all of this on television.
Mhm.
So I had a sense of who he was and the type of person he was. And then it's a matter of working with the script and all the source material about his life to try and make him a fully realized character.
Yeah.
And not just be a blue-eyed, racist,
Yeah.
iconic racist, because that I think would not do justice to the evil that he was.
He's blind.
Yeah.
You know what I do to folks when I put them on the chain gang, boy? Now listen, Mayor. That's what you desire to be called. I'm gonna give you a little piece of sound advice. If you ain't looking to share King's old cell with those little colored cockroaches.
Yeah. And I do want to just mention here too, contrasting your performance in Tag and The Secret Weapon. I mean, your range was really, really, really incredible. And I hated Bull Connor. I mean, I hate him anyway as a person, but I mean, your portrayal, and I mean that in the best sense of the word, that I just despised him. And it was such a wonderful job you did.
Well, I in looking at the movie, aside from the historical and dramatic elements of it, I kind of thought of this whole thing as like an Avengers movie, that the children in the Crusade were the Avengers in Endgame, and I was Thanos. You need to have great heroes, you need great villains.
Yeah.
And I wanted people to hate Bull Connor for what he was.
Yes.
and what he was doing.
Mhm.
To try and stop progress, to try and stop humanity.
Mm-hmm. Victoria, Paul had something to go by with the historical truth of Bull Connor. How did you say to yourself, okay, this is how Nellie would act. This is what it must have been like to be there?
I think in the moment I needed to do that, and I couldn't really think about it before. So Ken was there telling me to just have more of an attitude in the scene because I guess I was being too soft or something. But yeah, I didn't have anything really to go off of. I tried to Google her, but like that wasn't a real person. Well, that's not a real name. That is based off a real person. Nellie is. So yeah, I had to use my director.
Well, you used the director very well because you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Victoria. I was very impressed also. The whole project is impressive, but I was also impressed by the authenticity of the props and the surroundings and things like this. And I know there were so many things, but one thing that stands out to me is the bottle of Pepsi that I saw on the table. I said that's what Pepsi looked like back in the 60s. I guess, is that the job of the producers to do that? And I asked this really of Karen and Jay, I guess. Karen, why don't you take it first? I mean, I know what a producer is, but for the lay people and for like me, what are your roles as a producer? We'll go with Karen first, then Jay, will throw it over to you.
We're the glue that holds everything together. And our main function as I see it, is to support our director. Yeah. There may be things that we disagree with, but it's his vision, it's his writing, and whatever he says goes. And so if he wants an authentic Pepsi can, or he wants a certain picture, it's our goal to make sure, it's our job to make sure that his vision is realized. And as a producer, we have department heads reporting to us. So this was a small production. So, you wear many hats, but usually there is a props person, there's somebody that does the production coordinating and, pulling the administrative stuff together. Sure. We wear all the hats when you're a small production, but first and foremost, it's supporting whatever Ken wants, it goes, and
the lives of indie filmmakers.
Yes. Yes. And then, and we also do our best to support him financially too. And that sometimes that may mean coming out of our own pockets, and it may not be, $500,000, but maybe I can buy that shirt, that period shirt from the Goodwill store that's only $2, every little bit helps. Yeah. But also, because this is a small production, we still have to give hats off for Ken, because Ken has a collection of oldies but goodies stuff in his prop warehouse, wherever that may be. He has a lot of, some of the magazines I'm reading, like, where did you get this stuff? It's really good. It's really good what he has in his prop warehouse. Yeah.
Jay, do you kind of look at old historical photos as well to know what needs to be gotten for a scene, and what else do producers do? I know it sounds like such an ignorant question, but you know what I mean? There are so many roles a producer has. What else do you do to prepare?
I think Karen kind of hit the nail on the head with most of the roles the producer does, between making sure the project comes to full fruition, supporting your cast and your crew, especially your writer director, who's also a producer. So Ken was wearing many hats on this as well too. And then of course the financial side she was also talking about as well too, which goes into seeking funding. I know we had tried crowdfunding. Ken had set up a couple different sources of crowdfunding to kind of help with that. You also try reaching out to investors, see who might be interested. And again, there's not only just producers, there's so many different types of producers out there as well, for anything from an executive producer to a line producer to an associate producer. So they all have different roles. As the productions get bigger, their roles are all different as well too. But like Karen said, there's a lot of hats you wear as a producer on a small production. to go back to your question about historical photos and such, I know usually that might be something a production design person might help utilize in their design of a production, what things look like around a certain period. I know for our film, Ken had secured rights to a lot of those historic photos that were seen throughout the picture. And that's a task in itself, trying to find those and then trying to make sure everything looks like it fits within that time period. One of which was utilizing special effects in some areas to actually put in time specific items. Like if I recall, the cars outside the jail cell were time specific. And that was one of the special effect shots that were done to kind of add that in there and make it more authentic.
All right, Andrew, you get all this together. And I mean, I've heard so many times that films are made or broken in the editing room. And this one certainly was made. It came out beautifully. What do you do? And you get all the stuff, they throw it at you, now what?
Steven, it's just like now. It took you 20 minutes to get to me. What time is it? I'm the person that get everything late. It's not I'm the most important person on the show. Even more important than Ken. Ken wrote the thing. But that's all right. It's you know what? I want to answer two of your questions. It's once you receive all of the data, you become somewhat of you wear a lot of hats. You become a data wrangler. You become I believe the editor helps to create the star. I really do. Ken was educating me about what lazy editing is before I even started the job.
What is it?
And it was a good lesson. You can either cut back and forth. You can have somebody saying something here and something here, or you can cut back and forth, go to a third shot, a close-up, a wide shot, a mid-range shot. And those things are, I believe, what carries the movie. I believe that the editor really does create the star, and the director, with the director's guidance, of course, and he takes on what the director tells him to do, and he turns people into stars. When Nellie turns around and she pauses for a second before she tells him, no matter what, if you put me back, if you let me out, I'm going back in. I'm going to find a way to get back in. Those hesitation moments.
Great scene, Victoria.
When Paul and I discussed, I asked Paul the same question you did about racism, and it helped me to understand what true racism is all about. And I think I can answer your question. I know Ken said he didn't have the answer, but I think I can answer it. I interviewed Paul, and he said they believed what they were doing. So if in your heart, you're in Alabama or you're in Mississippi, and you believe that it's all right to lynch a Black person for the sake of, and I'll go with Emmett Till, for the sake of whistling at a white woman, because he's popular nowadays and always has been, but with his movie coming out. If you believe in your heart that it's okay to lynch him, beat him, and throw him off a bridge and drown him, then what Paul says is true. So when he embraces that character, he's saying, I believe what I'm doing right now. And he's embodying a spirit. And as the editor, I have to capture that moment. I have to capture that moment and bring it to life on screen. So when he looks at that mayor and he says, now listen, mayor, oh, damn, it does something to your soul.
Yeah. Or whatever he wants to be called. I think that you threw that in there too, Paul. That was very,
It's amazing. It is amazing. And this goes back to Mr. Sagoes, of course, educating me in what you would call lazy editing. You have to look at everything. You have to learn your characters. You have to grow them in accordance with their timepiece and what they've done. And yesterday really is today. When you can storm the Capitol, when you can do all kinds of things in an environment that doesn't have consequence. Let me say it that way.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever change. I just don't think it will ever change, because you have people in their spirit that believe what they're doing is right. So as the editor, I have to capture those moments.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Andrew, because I'm a child of the 60s. I grew up in the 1960s, and we swore we were going to change the world. as teenagers. We're the generation. And I mean, it does get to be so, the realism of life is just, sometimes it just gets you down. And I still try to be an idealist, as I'm sure we all do, but it does get defeating sometimes. And I can just imagine.
You would think that they would die. You would think that most races or most people that are that way would die out. It's not so.
No, they train their kids.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a
Yeah.
lingering spirit that's
Absolutely.
imparted into their children that keeps it going.
Mhm.
That's because racism is learned. That's a learned. That's a
Absolutely.
learned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, we mentioned before about with an indie film, the financial aspect of it. And I in a moment, I do want to get to the GoFundMe programs and the Giving Back Corporation. But before I turn it over to you, Ken, Paul and Victoria as actors, I have this question I just have to ask you. Okay, Ken says action. Are you, Victoria, we'll go with you first. Are you nervous as heck, like building up to that? Like, okay, go. I mean, I would be like, I wouldn't know. How do you get through that?
I can't remember if I was nervous, but I try not to be. I don't know. I was trying to, you asked how I prepared for it, and I think I wasn't really trying to be someone else. I was just doing what I would have done in the moment if I'm in jail and they're trying to get me out, even though this is a protest that's happening. I was just being me, which is why he had to help me and tell me to be louder, because I wouldn't have been, but I was just being myself in the moment with my guy who had a crush on me, and I don't care that you have a crush on me. Like, it's just, I'm in the moment. I wasn't sweating much. It was hot in there, though.
It really was.
Paul, how about you? I mean,
Well, I'm nervous, really nervous, up until the point that I get to set. And then I think the difference, nerves before and being there, is once you're ready for the cameras to turn, or once they turn on, you have to put your focus on the other actors, the other actors who are with you in the scene. And if you prepared well and you understand what's going on, you know how you want to affect them. And then it just, for me, all became, how do I want the other person to react? How do I want to change them? So I was very nervous before all the jail scenes with the kids. But when I got we started to do it, I just thought, I'm going to scare the living breath out of these kids. and it gives you, and I mean, that's more of an assertive action, but even other ways, it's putting all your focus on the other person and forgetting what's going on around.
Yeah. After the scene's over, do you kind of like give them all a little hug or a pat on the back? I really love you guys, or do you say character?
Yeah. Well, actually, in the scene, the end of the jail scene, when little Ricky has his final line about "I'm Jack Freedom and I live on Mother Goose Lane," and he did it, and the tears are streaming down. It's such a moment. They yelled "cut," and I just went, "You stole the scene from me." So that was my pat on the back for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Ken, we turn to you now. First of all, how did you assemble this incredible group of professionals that we have on the show here?
I guess the reason I just I don't say too much now, because I feel like I've done what I set out to do. And I went through a lot of actors. This was, everybody that I knew had told me that this was going to be a big challenge, because I was dealing with young people and you had to have a teacher on the set. And I think we had up to about 20 something kids on the set. And not only do we have to have a teacher on the set, we could only use certain kids up to about 3 or 4 hours. So many of these young kids, I had spoken with them before. And most of the actors that I deal with, I get to know them before. I learned from a couple of directors that directed me. Some of my best scenes as an actor in films have been those where I had a relationship with the director.
Mhm.
And so the director allowed me, we talked, so there wasn't no new things that came out on the set. And I just knew once I saw a particular actor that that's who I wanted. I shouldn't tell Victoria this, but when I saw her the first time, I knew I wanted her because it was something that she did. And we looked at about 15 other actors.
Mhm.
And
What did you do? What did you do?
it was, she prepared. It was something about her attitude
Mm-hmm.
when she did the role. And I liked it. As for Paul, we actually worked together, you know. We worked together at standardized patients, so we knew each other. But it was difficult to deal with him after he did Bull Connor because I didn't know if that shit was real. But so I had to like him again.
I always liked you.
But the thing about like Paul went at that role and he was not going to let me deny him. And I always feel that, you know, some people want to go for a name, but you know, I feel that sometimes a name can take away from the character. And so I think it was about, correct me, Karen, about 25 actors in there.
Yeah.
And each one of them, even when we did the scene with just the kids looking, they was on point.
Mm-hmm.
It was on point, you know, and
You decided to go with the talent.
I decided to go with the talent.
Rather than the name, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can I add one thing? I know we got to do this really quick, but
Please
I
do.
just
No,
want to
take
say
your
that
time.
I believe that Ken did something that was really powerful, and I've never seen it done. I can't identify a star in this movie. It's really weird. Very seldom do I say that. I can't identify who the main, like, you know, you would have Brad Pitt and whoever, but I can't identify a leading role in this particular movie. And it's weird to me. I don't know. And that's as the editor. I don't know who the star is. So, and Ken asked Ken, and he said the children are the stars. But I was looking for one person, and it just did not stand out to me. And I think that's the genius of this particular movie. It's really powerful to see. I just wanted to add that, Ken, because
Yeah, you know, that's
was really good.
That's a great point, Andrew. If I can piggyback on that too. Everyone in the movie, every character in the movie had their own story, and you knew where each character was coming from. It wasn't like you said, you know, Robert De Niro, well, you know, he's going to be the star of the movie, so it's going to be focused on him. No, everyone got their focus, and everyone had their own, you know, their lot in life. This is what we have to do as the character. And that was I agree with you 100%, Andrew, on that. Now, you know, quickly before we go, I want to go to the funding for your works too, Ken. But before, when we mentioned about that there were teachers on set, Jay and Karen, is that part of the producer's job to get those teachers, and is that what the producer does? You know, you need local schools and things. I know it's a simple question, but
well, first, no, it's not really a simple question, because part of it was that this was part of a union show.
Mhm.
And with the union show, their SAG-AFTRA is very specific of how things need to be done.
Mhm.
And with that, there are different, they have a list of people that we can go to and choose from, because all those teachers have to be certified to be on set or certified to teach kids during that particular time frame. But we do, you know, when it's almost like a casting session. We're interviewing teachers to make sure they have a certain dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Also, because, you know, there's some teachers are really strict, and then others are a little bit more, a little nicer, if you will.
Yeah, and it's different than a classroom setting.
Yes.
Being on a set.
And also, this was during COVID. This was the high time of COVID.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, and as Ken mentioned, we because we were with that short film and low budget, we scheduled filming so it wasn't during school hours, because that's a whole nother ball game when kids are in school. We did this like during the summer session, and so kids had not started school yet. We're
Okay.
still required to have a teacher on set, but it's different from when school's in session.
Jay, would you say the number one problem of a producer, or not concern, not problem, concern of a producer is the finances?
Yeah, I think to start, it's usually the finances, making sure that's all pulled together. Then it goes, once you do have the financing in place, you try not to go over budget. And then beyond that, it's then kind of gears towards, okay, sometimes when you have issues arise with the production itself, either a particular department or something goes wrong, you kind of have to step in and be a problem solver as well too, and kind of take that off the director's plate, so they're not having to do that. They have to concentrate on getting the film made, working with the actors. Producers should be trying to handling all the problems that are going on behind the scenes and whatnot as well. So yeah, you kind of play not only the person in charge of finding the financing, but then later on to the problem solver. So you're always having to be on top of your game throughout the pre-production, production itself, and post-production. Your job's not quite over.
Yeah. Ken, I see this film. This would work perfect to be shown in schools all across the country, all across the world.
Yep.
Is that one of your hopes for this film to be shown in schools?
Well, my hope is that it'll be a feature film. I want it to be a modern day classic, a Cooley High per se, modern day Cooley High. And with that being said, yes, of course, I would like for it to be shown in schools. I do know that there are several teachers that have contacted me about making a lesson plan and getting permission to show it at their schools. So I'm grateful for that, for what it's about. But there is already a feature film script that I hope that I can, this here short film will parlay it to some producers that want to do a feature film of it.
I'm sorry, no, I stepped on your.
It's just that I lived this life and I knew what this life was about. I saw these people. I actually saw Dr. King and all of them. So that's why I want to give them their props too, but I want to make sure that this was the children's story. If the children was not in the scene, they were going to be talked about in the scene. That was very, very important.
School children, they see this, and I'm telling you, the short too, in my opinion, it would be a great springboard for other lessons to shoot out during social studies or really any part of the school, but they can see this. And it shows children that, yes, they do make a difference. They absolutely can make a difference. I think a lot of children might think, no, when I get to be an adult, that's when life starts. But no, I mean, this is living proof that children make a difference.
I had my film festival and we did the premiere of The Secret Weapon yesterday is today. And Mamie King Chalmers, along with Ruby Shuttlesworth Bester, they endorsed the film. And we sat in somewhat of a town hall meeting hotel, and we gleaned from them and we learned from them. And some of the young men that were acting in the film, it was like a lesson plan in itself. So, and I have it on tape. I actually have it on tape. I'll send it so you can. But we sat there at the feet of these women that were in the Children's Crusade. They were the children, and we listened and we absorbed and we learned. And some people cried, some people laughed, but I believe that it's an American story. That allows for us to grow together and not make the same mistakes. And Ken has stumbled onto something. It should be in every lesson plan. It should be. I've had a couple of high schools reach out to me as well. It should be in every single lesson plan. It should be across the board and in other countries. It really should.
Yeah, that's international. I agree with you, Andrew. Yeah. Ken, before I want to get to the Giving Back Corporation, but do you think your brilliant portrayal of Big Baby in John Singleton's Rosewood, did that kind of, is that where your civil rights activism first really took hold, or was it even before that role?
Oh, my civil rights stuff came when I was born.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was born, in the deep South. I was on the outskirts of the civil rights movement. My grandmother actually was very good close friends to the King family. And so Daddy King was their pastor. So we had no running water. We had none of those things. We was like, no, 1 O, POR. That's what we and so I actually felt it. I remember going to the store. We had to walk up this long dirt road. During the summer, we would carry an umbrella, not because it was raining, but because some of the white kids would throw rocks at us and we would block it with the umbrella. So I lived it. I saw a guy hanging from a tree. I saw those things. I lived those things. So that's where it started. And that's why much of what I write have my history in it, has my life, my upbringing in it. And I had one white friend at the time that we were the same age. And he used to throw rocks at me. He always would miss me. But in the afternoon on Saturday, we would meet down at the creek and we would talk. I knew he couldn't be friends with me in front of his friends. So I lived that life. And I like to write about those life, that part of that life, because I know that it's real. I know that sometimes they can't. The hatred is so deep that the love cannot come out unless someone push it. So that's where it started from. I'm trying not to talk because we'll be here for 2 hours and I don't want to do that.
No, Karen, I mean, as you said, it's racism is a learned thing. And it's which generation is going to stop? It's a rhetorical question. I understand.
Yeah.
It's
I think it's very challenging today, especially when you have our so-called leadership or elected officials that perpetuate a certain hatred or it's disguised. I don't know what from immigration issues to police beatings to everything like that. It's perpetuated, and now we have a new generation taking up the cross, if you will, trying to resolve these issues because they're between two places here. Everybody's about diversity, and so you have a younger generation coming up, but yet they're still seeing yesterday of things that I said, wait a minute, this is supposed to be cleared. It's happening over and over and over again in each generation. You have the people that fight it, then you have the people that have like I said, the learned hatred.
I will say from my last years in teaching, I retired about 8 years ago, but I do see the younger generation being a lot more tolerant of the gay community, the acceptance of interracial relationships. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal to more of them than when I first started teaching. I don't know if you all see that as well, but I do see a little glimmer of hope, and that's what I'm hanging on to.
But there's always been a little glimmer of hope.
Yeah, not big enough.
when it comes to the children, because the children, they don't come out like racist.
Yes.
They don't see it. So it's always have been that hope is as they grow older, those above them invade their thoughts into them.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing about Bull Connor, as Paul gave me his book. Bull Connor was just following what his daddy taught him. And he loved his father. So how can you think that your father, the person that's next to God, could teach you anything wrong? And that's where we have to start cutting some of this stuff off.
Yeah. I mean, but when you get to an adult, don't you understand it's wrong? Like, what I'm doing is wrong. Okay, that I can see for a while, like Bull Connor's father was a racist, so he grew up a racist. But doesn't there, and again, I'm saying so rhetorical, but doesn't it come a time when you say, this is wrong? I gotta stop it. But
it's
I
about
think
money.
they all say it's wrong. Things that I do, I say is wrong. But you want to live a life. And you want to be able to live it, not be killed. So it is all there. We need to bring it out in the open. One of the things that Dr. King said about the children, when one of the children was beaten so badly, is that he said that we got to bring this out in the open. If they're going to kill us, then they got to come out in the open to do it. Because there was fights that was there for the fight.
Andrew, you were saying something.
I was just saying that I don't think it ever ends. You have the imagination. I heard an actor say the worst place that a Black man can live is in a white person's imagination. We imagine them being these demons and these devils and these they're gonna kill us and rape us and they're gonna do all this. So when slavery ended, they're gonna take revenge on us and it carries over into today. So yesterday really is today. I always throw this stat out. 60% of America's GDP was slavery. So when you start talking about 60% of your money, if you're a kid and you're inheriting the farm and the slaves, of course you're gonna flip. Your whole mindset changes. I might have grew up with Ken Jr. and I was on the farm and Ken was the slave, and I'm the one that's has him in slavery. But when we get a little bit older, things change because that money comes into play. So when we start talking about 40 acres, 100 acres, 2,000 acres, George Washington, everybody got the name Washington. Why is that? Washington was a slave owner. First 13 presidents were slave owners. I don't think it ends. I just don't.
And many thought, yes, go ahead. I just cut someone off. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, part of it is, slavery, racism, they are profitable things. And people, there's obviously hate baked into it, but it makes financial sense to have a class of people that do all your work that you don't have to pay.
Follow the money.
And it perpetuates that way too, I think.
Yeah.
Dr. King said the two most dangerous things in America is sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. What does that mean? You're gonna be sincere in your ignorance. Bull Connor was sincere. You got to keep your whites and your blacks separated. But the conscientious stupidity of it was him knowing that you don't sick dogs on kids. That's just him ostracizing himself and sticking his head in the sand. These are babies, as young as 4 years old. And going back to the film, I thought it was brilliant that Ken was able to bring these babies on screen and showed him being locked behind cages like that and bitten, their clothes ripped. So when you see that on television, how can you turn a blind eye? And that's what bothers me about America till this day. There's a continued sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity that goes on in America, and it's inheritable. People inherit it and they take it in. So again, as the editor, I must say, as the brilliant award-winning editor, it is my job to bring those things, bring those things to light. Yes, indeed.
Ken, I want to talk about the Sagoes company, if we may. before we move on to your next project, but I just want to read a couple of statistics. Now, your Giving Back Corporation, and people see it on the screen now. You've put close to 700 young people through college through this Giving Back Corporation. You sent over 200 to summer camp. These things don't get done without, your corporation can't succeed without donations, of course.
Right.
Tell us first more about the Giving Back Corporation and how can everyone help?
The Giving Back is started because I don't want to be one of those people to say what I'm going to do. I just want to do. And so that's what I set out to do it. I started the nonprofit with a $6 to $7 unemployment check. And I paid for kids' books when they go to college. I wished I could do more. It started in 1997. And you can support it by, going to the givingbackcorporation.com and you can make a donation there. But I like to say that it's not so much as Ken doing this here. I could not have done this without all the people who support me. Most people know if it's just $1, it gets me closer to where I am. And I do what I have to do. Every time I've done a film, I've made sure I've helped somebody's kid through school. Things that I had it hard for when I was in school, I make sure. There were several times during the summer that I saw the yellow bus driving away with kids going to camp. So I promised God that I was going to make sure that I was going to send some kids to camp because I didn't want them to feel like me. So, and so I don't know what else to say. Is that I do what I do. And that's what I love to do.
And I'm sorry, I'm looking down, Ken. The website, what's the website address?
It's gbc-givingbackcorporation.com.
Okay, and by the time the show airs, that'll be on screen too, but okay. I think besides Big Baby, we film lovers know you as Kincaid, the smart mouth Kincaid in Nightmare on Elm Street, parts 3 and 4. And you are the first African-American actor to be in an international horror film that survives the horror film and lives to fight in the next film. And Freddy Krueger was your nemesis.
They just forgot to kill my ass in 3. So, but and I'm glad you said that, because the first Black was the great late William Marshall, who did Blackula in 1970, but that was not an international film. But in my eyes, when I was also writing The Secret Weapon, you see, Bull Connor was my Freddy Krueger. And those kids were the Dream Warriors.
Yeah.
That was one of the ways I looked at it.
Your next project, and again, I need all of your helps because I know I'm learning about it pretty much now too, is Socrates. And this is kind of I won't say a love letter, but kind of giving back to your huge horror fan base with your next project. Could you tell us about Socrates?
Yes, Socrates is about a bird, African gray parrot, that was possessed during slavery, that a voodoo king's son was being shipped off to be a slave. So he put this spell on this bird to have that bird to go follow his son and watch over his son. So over the years, the bird may have died, but the spirit went into another bird. And so fast forward to today's time, the person that was taking care of the bird buried the bird because the bird was getting too powerful. And he buried the bird, and then the bird was dug up by an ancestor. And now the bird is out for revenge. So he's out to kill the ancestors of the slave owners, the ancestors of the slaves who helped the slave owners, the ancestors of the slaves who stopped the slaves that was trying to get to freedom. In other words, nobody is safe. So,
you know, I misspoke, Ken. You were nice enough to share with me the screenplay. Yeah. I shouldn't say I don't know anything about it, but other than that, and you do the voiceover for Socrates. Ken.
Yes.
Which I did not know at first. I didn't know it at first.
I know, you know, Andrew, when he mentioned it to me, I said, yeah, I know.
When I heard it, I didn't think,
but then
didn't think that was him.
But when he told me, then I said, yeah, that's Ken.
Gotta got me. Gotta got me.
You know, Victoria and Paul, have either of you done voiceover work?
No, I never have.
No. Would you like?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead,
No,
Victoria.
no. Would you have aspirations to do it, Victoria?
Oh, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I like your attitude. Absolutely. Paul?
I have done a lot of commercials, particularly back on the East Coast, and a movie, a horror movie that I shot 13, 14 years ago sort of disappeared, and now it's come on to streaming. It's called the Poughkeepsie Tape, and my part in it is mostly voiceover.
Really? Oh, I'm going to check that out. Horror is my favorite genre.
Oh, well, this is a really creepy film. Really.
Oh, now I'll have to rewatch it. I've seen it. I didn't know Paul did the voiceover now.
Oh, you've seen it, Jay? Okay.
Yeah. I play a policeman, and I'm on screen for like a second, and then the rest of it is all voiceover.
Well, Jay and Karen, a question I should have asked maybe a little earlier. Do you read, like, for instance, I want to show The Secret Weapon again. When you are producing this film, do you read the novel, or you pretty much go by the screenplay?
It depends. I try to do research on everything, so I'm up to date. I like to think that I'm well read, but this was a part of history that I did not know. And so I was enlightened by, and Ken's book was very intriguing. And then all the people that came, the people that were part of it. And so, I do research to make sure that when I am doing the project, when people ask me a question about a project, I have the answer. You will not ask me a question that I do not have an answer.
They're going to go to you.
Yeah.
They're going to go to you. How about you, Jay?
Yeah, when the opportunity is there to actually read the background and go more in depth into it, yeah, of course, look into it. I remember when Ken first mentioned the idea of this several years ago, and I found out the synopsis for it. It was just an amazing idea. So, the first time I got a chance to read something that, he finally put the paper behind, for the story itself, I had to get my eyes on it. And it's the only drawback is sometimes having a full book as compared to short scripts. There's things you're thinking of that are in the book that are in the script. So you got to make sure you stick to the script pretty much in production.
Excellent point. Andrew, how about you as an editor?
You know what, I read quite a bit, but I try to remove myself from it mentally, because I have to see and read and what Ken will tell you, I want to add so much. I want to go above and beyond and be creative and be the creative. And I think that bothers me when I'm reading it so much, because I'll be like, oh my God, I see this. Our biggest argument was over lightning in The Secret Weapon. I stick to this day till I die.
And
Go ahead, tell him,
What was the argument? What was the argument, Andrew?
We had
one of them.
But this was the biggest, because I'll take this to the grave. So there's a scene where there's a barn scene, and the clan, they have the young man on the ground, he's on his back, and there's a flash. It's like just a flashlight. And then about 5 seconds later, you hear the thunder come in. So I was arguing with Ken. I said, well, I'm in Chicago. We hear the lightning and the thunder, boom, it shows. And he said, no, in the South, you see the lightning first, and then maybe 5 and sometimes up to 10 seconds later, you'll hear the thunder roar.
I ain't saying nothing about no 10
Yes,
seconds.
you did.
Yeah, I did.
It could happen.
I'm not stopping the show until this is resolved. You guys go back.
I'm just saying, I had never seen that. So to me, I've gone back and I've looked at a lot of, and Miss Karen argued me down. She told me this too. She agreed with Ken. But when I look at movies, they always show the lightning and the thunder simultaneously, or the flash simultaneously. And I guess I was incorrect on it, but I don't know. It just didn't feel right. That was the only thing.
But Steve, this brings up another point too, because Andrew is a good editor and he's done other things and he's a creative too, but this is when we step in and producer. Well, guess what, Andrew? It's not your film. It's Ken's film.
That's why you got to cut the baby and be like, it ain't yours.
Yeah, it's Ken's film. So if Ken wants thunder and lightning, if he wants that thunder a half an hour after the lightning, it's your job just to follow it. And that is where a lot of our producing
Gotcha, yeah.
stuff come in, is that it's Ken's vision. And it doesn't take away from Andrew's creativity. It doesn't take away from other people that are contributing to make this, because everybody wants it to be a great film. You know, that's why we're a part of it. But the bottom line is still Ken's vision. And like I said, that is probably one of the most challenging jobs as a producer, is to keep the people in line. You know, we understand that you want a fluffy pillow, but guess what? They didn't have fluffy pillows like that in 1963, you know, and, and we have to really reel in other people's creative license without them feeling like, you know, you're suffocating me. I can't do this. So
very true. Very true.
But that happens not in everything. I mean, I remember when we was trying to shoot some of the kids, they didn't want to cut their hair. They couldn't understand that there was a hairstyle in 63. Everything was not a fade. So, so it's little things that you're going to go through. You know, when I spoke with some of my director friends, they said there's never a good film if there wasn't arguments.
Yeah, I would imagine that, you know, with actors and the crew together, you're going to have disagreement, but you're all with the common goal of making a good product. And I guess that's, you know, the main thing you will have to keep in the back of your minds, if I'm correct.
Yeah. I did want to go back to Socrates.
Yes, I'm not done. I'm not done either, but I wanted you and Andrew to finish your argument, but I guess it's okay. So go ahead.
I'll take it to the grave. I'm a city boy. I don't see no lightning and thunder. They together.
Unless you turn on the TV.
Ken, we have to bring him down south so he can experience one of them Georgia thunderstorms.
Okay, well, you want to continue about Socrates, Ken?
No, I you know, because Jay and I think 3 weeks ago, we was in New York. We was actually filming a African gray parrot, and we got some good shots, Jay. I have to send them to you. Already, you know, he's been like working and trying to get some placements, you know, like I was saying, wow. So, but I'm hoping this short would be a tribute to 3 horror legends that I really respect. And one of them is Alfred Hitchcock, Wes Craven, and William Marshall. So
you've obviously met
all 3 of them.
But you've met all of these people, haven't you, Ken? How about a quick thumbnail of each? Alfred Hitchcock, what's your remembrance of Alfred
Hitchcock? I met him when I was a security guard at Universal Studios. I had to go through his bungalow and I was looking at it. He spoke to me and turned around. We didn't have a conversation, but he did talk to me long enough to stay hanging there. Of course, Wes Craven did Nightmare on Elm Street. He was the creator of it. And
I'm sorry, how was Wes Craven to work with?
He was not on the set when we were filming. I met him at a party outside of the set. I was introducing myself to him. He said, "I know who you are." And so, but William Marshall, I was going to honor him with my Giving Back Foundation. And he was too ill to be honored, but he did talk to me. And I did not want to embrace horror at the time. And he told me how it was important for me to embrace it. And so that's why I'm going to Socrates. I don't have the poster. Wait, can you see it?
Bring it back a bit. Well, maybe, I don't know, bring it forward.
You gotta take the blur effect.
I think your blur is doing it.
Blur effect is blurring it out.
Yeah.
Put it right in front of your face, Ken. How about that? That might work.
Are you trying to tell me something?
Just keep it there for the rest of the interview, all right? No. No. You know what? I'll put it on screen. I'll get it on screen for the show. But real quickly before we tie it up, Ken, do you see Socrates as a series or a continuing?
I would like for Socrates to be like about 3 movies based off of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has a lot going on in there. I think it deals with animals. It deals with child abuse. It deals with history and all of those things. I would like for it to be something that's fresh and new.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent it to Jay. He approved it.
For what that's worth.
No, I think if you approve it, Jay, it's got to be good.
I hope.
And animation is so cool as well, So, and Victoria and Paul mentioned to Ken that you're interested in voiceover. I mean,
Oh, yes.
you might want to just drop it in there,
Cast me, Mr. Ken. That's all I can say.
Well, listen, all of you, I can't thank all of you enough. And I appreciate all the time you gave. We went over a little over. I hope you don't mind, but it was just too many important things to talk about. And it went so fast. And I really do hope sometime when other projects come up, we can somehow get together, maybe not as this group, but individually. And I just respect all of you so much. The work you did with The Secret Weapon yesterday is today. Just brilliant. And I hope it does become a feature film. And thanks so much, all of you, for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Ram.
Steve.
Classic pop culture. It's classic pop culture. Hosted by Steve Ludwig.
Hi, I'm Steve Ludwig. When I was 52 years old, I had quintuple open heart bypass surgery, and I wrote a book about it. It's called See You in CCU.